Sarah Martinez had always been different from other girls in her small Texas town. While her classmates spent weekends at the mall or painting their nails, she could be found at the local shooting range with her grandfather, learning the art of precision marksmanship. Her calloused hands told the story of countless hours spent cleaning, maintaining, and perfecting her technique with firearms. The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty parking lot of Riverside High School as Sarah carefully placed her rifle case in her truck. Today was the state championship qualifying round for the high school shooting team, and she had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Her custom-built .22 caliber rifle, a graduation gift from her late grandfather, was her most prized possession. Every component had been carefully selected and fine-tuned to achieve perfect accuracy. Sarah's teammates, Jake and Marcus, were already loading their equipment when she arrived at the range. The boys had never quite accepted that a girl could outshoot them consistently, but Sarah's performance spoke louder than their whispered comments. She had earned the top position on the team through pure skill, not favoritism. "Morning, boys," Sarah said, setting her case down with practiced care. The familiar weight of the rifle inside gave her confidence. She had spent the previous evening cleaning every part, checking the scope alignment, and running through her pre-competition routine. Jake barely looked up from his gear. "Hope you're ready for some real competition today, Martinez. The state qualifiers don't mess around like our local matches." Marcus laughed, adjusting his baseball cap. "Maybe you should have brought your backup rifle. This isn't exactly a beginner's tournament." Sarah ignored their comments and opened her case. What she saw inside made her blood run cold. Her rifle lay in pieces, deliberately disassembled. The carefully adjusted scope was loosened, the barrel had been removed from the stock, and several small components were missing entirely. Someone had systematically taken apart her weapon and scattered the pieces throughout the foam padding. "What the hell?" she whispered, her hands trembling as she examined the damage. This wasn't accidental. Someone had intentionally sabotaged her equipment just hours before the most important competition of her high school career. Coach Williams approached, clipboard in hand, ready to begin the team check-in process. "All right, team, let's get your rifles inspected and logged for competition. Sarah, you're up first since you're our top shooter." Sarah's voice caught in her throat. "Coach, I need a minute. There's been a problem." The older man frowned and looked into the open case. His expression immediately darkened. "Who did this?" "This is deliberate sabotage." Jake and Marcus exchanged glances, their faces showing what Sarah interpreted as poorly concealed satisfaction. She had suspected they resented her position on the team, but she never imagined they would stoop to this level. "I don't know, Coach," Sarah said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "But I'm going to find out." Other competitors from rival schools were already setting up at their shooting positions. The range officer announced that equipment inspection would begin in 30 minutes. Sarah stared at the scattered pieces of her rifle, her mind racing through possibilities. She had two choices: give up and let whoever did this win, or figure out a way to rebuild her weapon in record time. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory from countless afternoons spent in his workshop. "A true marksman doesn't just shoot accurately, Mija. They understand every part of their weapon, every screw, every spring, every piece that makes it work. If you truly know your rifle, you can fix anything." Sarah took a deep breath and began laying out the disassembled components on a towel beside her case. She had helped her grandfather rebuild rifles from scratch, but never under pressure like this. Never with so much riding on the outcome. The bolt had been removed, and the firing pin was nowhere to be seen. The trigger assembly was loosened, but not completely removed. Most critically, the scope mounting screws were missing, and the delicate zero adjustment she had spent weeks perfecting was completely lost. "Sarah, honey, maybe you should withdraw from today's competition," Coach Williams suggested gently. "We can file a complaint with the athletic department and investigate this properly." "No," Sarah said firmly, surprising herself with the determination in her voice. "Whoever did this wants me to quit. They want me to give up without even trying." She glanced over at Jake and Marcus, who were making a show of preparing their own equipment while obviously watching her reaction. Whether they were responsible or not, she wasn't going to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her defeated by sabotage. Sarah opened the small toolkit that her grandfather had insisted she always carry with a rifle case. Inside were specialized screwdrivers, Allen keys, and small replacement parts that he had taught her to keep on hand. A prepared shooter never gets caught off guard, he used to say. Working with steady hands despite her nervousness, Sarah began the painstaking process of reassembling her rifle. She started with the basic action, carefully inserting the bolt and ensuring the timing was correct. The familiar motions helped calm her racing thoughts. Other competitors were already beginning their practice rounds, but Sarah forced herself to focus only on the task at hand. Each component had to be perfectly aligned, every screw tightened to exact specifications. Her grandfather had drilled these procedures into her until she could perform them blindfolded. The scope mounting proved the most challenging problem. Without the original screws, she had to improvise with slightly different hardware from her emergency kit. The zero would be completely off, meaning she would have to re-sight the rifle from scratch during her limited practice time. As Sarah worked, a small crowd of curious observers gathered around her station. Word was spreading about the sabotage, and competitors from other schools watched with interest as she methodically rebuilt her weapon. "That's impressive," commented a girl from a neighboring school district. "I wouldn't even know where to start if someone took apart my rifle." An older gentleman wearing a range officer badge stopped to observe Sarah's work. "Young lady, that's some fine gunsmithing. Your grandfather teach you that?" Sarah nodded, not looking up from her delicate adjustment of the trigger mechanism. "He always said a shooter should know their weapon better than anyone else." With 15 minutes remaining until the competition began, Sarah completed the basic assembly of her rifle. The weapon looked intact, but she knew that appearances meant nothing in precision shooting. Without proper zeroing, even the most expertly assembled rifle would miss the target entirely. Coach Williams announced that practice rounds would begin in 5 minutes. Sarah would have perhaps 10 shots to determine how far off her scope adjustment was and make corrections before the official competition started. Her hands were steady now, all nervousness replaced by focused determination. Someone had tried to end her competitive career before it truly began, but they had underestimated both her technical knowledge and her resolve. Sarah shouldered her rifle and approached the firing line, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether months of preparation would end in humiliation or triumph. The scattered components in her rifle case had become a test of everything her grandfather had taught her about precision, patience, and perseverance. The other competitors settled into their positions as the range officer called for the practice period to begin. Sarah chambered her first round and took aim at the distant target, fully aware that she was about to discover whether her hasty rebuild would hold together under the pressure of competition shooting. Sarah's first practice shot missed the target completely, disappearing into the hillside behind the range. The scope was off by several feet, exactly as she had expected. She made a quick adjustment to the windage knob and fired again. This shot hit the outer edge of the target, still far from the bullseye, but at least on paper. "Time remaining for practice, 6 minutes, announced the range officer. Most competitors were already grouping their shots nicely, fine-tuning minor adjustments to their pre-zeroed rifles. Sarah was starting from scratch, essentially learning her rebuilt weapon's personality in real time. She had 8 practice rounds left to accomplish what normally took dozens of shots over several range sessions. Her third shot hit closer to center, and Sarah made another calculated adjustment. Her grandfather's training echoed in her mind as she worked through the systematic process of zeroing. "Don't chase your shots, Mija. Make one adjustment at a time, and let the rifle tell you what it needs." Jake's voice carried from 2 positions down the firing line. "Looks like Martinez is having some trouble with her equipment. Maybe she should have checked it this morning." Sarah bit back her response and focused on her 4th shot. The bullet struck within the 8 ring, a significant improvement. She was beginning to understand how her hastily rebuilt rifle was performing. The trigger felt slightly different than before, with a tiny amount of additional creep, but it was manageable. The morning air was still, with minimal wind to complicate her calculations. Sarah took advantage of the conditions and fired her fifth practice round. The shot landed in the 7 ring, just outside her usual grouping area. She was getting close. 3 minutes remaining, called a range officer. Other competitors were finishing their practice sessions, satisfied with their equipment checks and minor adjustments. Sarah had 3 rounds left to achieve what they had accomplished with their properly functioning rifles. She made another small scope adjustment and settled into her shooting position. Her 6th shot hit the 8 ring again, but in a different location from the previous round. The inconsistency told her that the scope mounting was still not quite right. During her hasty reassembly, she hadn't been able to apply the exact torque specifications that her grandfather always insisted upon. "You're doing great," whispered Amy Chun, the shooter from the position beside her. "I saw what happened to your rifle. Can't believe someone would sabotage another competitor like that." Sarah nodded gratefully and prepared for her 7th practice round. She had noticed Amy's excellent shooting during their warm-up sessions and respected her skill. Having support from a fellow competitor meant more than she had expected. The 7th shot struck the 9 ring, finally approaching her normal accuracy level. Sarah felt a surge of confidence as she made one final minor adjustment to the scope. She had 2 practice rounds remaining and was beginning to trust her rebuilt rifle. Marcus cleared his throat loudly from his position. "Hope you save some luck for the actual competition, Martinez. Practice doesn't count for anything." Sarah ignored him and focused on her 8th practice shot. The bullet struck the 10 ring, just outside the X ring that marked perfect shots. She was back in business. Her final practice round also hit the 10 ring, confirming that she had successfully zeroed her rifle under pressure. "Practice period is now complete," announced the range officer. "All competitors, please clear your firearms and prepare for the official qualification round." Sarah felt her hands trembling slightly as she unloaded her rifle. The adrenaline from the morning's crisis was beginning to catch up with her. She had accomplished the impossible by rebuilding and zeroing her rifle in such a short time, but the real test was just beginning. The official qualification round consisted of 50 shots from the prone position at 50 meters. Competitors would fire in strings of 10 shots, with brief pauses between strings to allow for scoring and minimal adjustments. Only the top 8 individual scores would advance to the state championship, and Sarah's entire high school career in competitive shooting depended on her performance over the next hour. Coach Williams approached her position during the brief break. "Sarah, I'm proud of you for not giving up this morning. What you accomplished with that rifle rebuild was extraordinary. But remember, you don't have to prove anything to anybody. Just shoot your normal game." "Thanks, Coach," Sarah replied, checking her rifle one more time. "I feel good about it. The scope is holding 0, and the trigger is breaking cleanly." The range officer called for the first string of 10 shots to begin. Sarah loaded her rifle and settled into the shooting position that had become second nature through countless hours of practice. She forced herself to forget about the morning's sabotage and focus only on the fundamentals her grandfather had drilled into her. Her first official shot of the competition struck the X-ring dead center. The perfect hit sent a wave of relief through her body, confirming that her rebuilt rifle was performing at championship level. She had overcome the sabotage and was ready to compete. The second shot also found the X-ring, followed by a 10, then another X. Sarah was shooting with the precision that had made her the top shooter on her team, and the morning's crisis seemed like a distant memory. Her breathing was controlled, her sight picture was consistent, and her trigger squeeze was smooth. By the end of the first string, Sarah had scored 8 X's and 2 10s for a perfect score of 100 points. The other competitors were shooting well, but none had matched her flawless start. Jake had scored 97, Marcus managed 95, and Amy Chun had posted an impressive 99. "Excellent shooting," Amy commented as they prepared for the second string. "Your rebuild must have worked perfectly. My grandfather always said a rifle is only as good as the person shooting it," Sarah replied, feeling more confident with each passing minute. The The second string proved more challenging as the morning sun began to affect the lighting conditions on the range. Sarah's first shot of the string landed in the 9 ring, breaking her perfect streak. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that even champion shooters didn't hit perfect scores on every shot. Her next shot found the X ring again, followed by another 10. Sarah was finding her rhythm despite the earlier setback. The rebuilt rifle felt increasingly familiar with each shot, and she was beginning to trust it completely. Jake's shooting position was close enough that she could hear him muttering under his breath after each shot. His frustration was becoming apparent as Sarah continued to outshoot him despite her equipment problems. Marcus seemed equally unsettled by her performance. Sarah completed the second string with a score of 98, bringing her total to 198 out of a possible 200 points. She was leading the competition by a significant margin, but 3 strings remained, and anything could happen in precision shooting. During the break between strings, she overheard Jake talking quietly to Marcus about her performance. Their conversation was too low to understand clearly, but their body language suggested they were not pleased with her recovery from the morning sabotage. Sarah realized that her success was doing more than just advancing her to state championships. It was proving that their apparent attempt to eliminate her from competition had failed completely. Every perfect shot was a statement that she belonged on the team and couldn't be intimidated by underhanded tactics. As she prepared for the third string, Sarah felt a calm determination settling over her. The morning's crisis had tested her technical knowledge, her emotional resilience, and her ability to perform under extreme pressure. She had passed every test, and now she was ready to show everyone exactly what she was capable of when nothing could shake her confidence. The third string began with perfect shooting conditions. The morning breeze had died completely, and the sun was positioned to provide ideal lighting on the targets. Sarah knew this was her opportunity to build an insurmountable lead in the competition. Her first shot of the string struck the X ring with authority. The second followed suit, then the third. Sarah was entering what competitive shooters call the zone, a state of perfect focus where every shot feels inevitable and correct. Her rebuilt rifle was performing flawlessly, as if her grandfather's spirit was guiding every bullet to its mark. String 3, shot number 4, she whispered to herself, maintaining the mental cadence that helped her stay focused. The fourth shot hit the X-ring dead center, followed by the fifth. She was shooting a perfect string, something that even experienced competitors rarely achieved under championship pressure. Amy Chan was holding her own with consistent 10s and occasional X-ring hits, but she was falling behind Sarah's blistering pace. The other competitors were beginning to show the strain of the high-stakes competition, with several posting scores in the low 90s. Jake's frustration was becoming more apparent with each shot. His 7th shot of the string hit the 8 ring, a significant error for a shooter of his caliber. Sarah could hear him cursing under his breath as he tried to regain his composure. Marcus was faring even worse. His normally steady shooting had deteriorated into a series of 9s and 8s, and his body language suggested he was fighting a losing battle against mounting pressure and anger. Sarah completed her third string with another perfect score of 100 points, bringing her total to 298 out of 300 possible points. She was shooting a level that exceeded her own personal best performances, and the rebuilt rifle was proving more accurate than ever. During the break, Coach Williams approached with barely contained excitement. "Sarah, you're shooting lights out. I've never seen you this focused and consistent. Whatever happened this morning seems to have made you even more determined." "I feel like my grandfather is looking over my shoulder," Sarah replied honestly. "Every technique he taught me is coming together perfectly." The range officer announced the beginning of the fourth string. Sarah was now 22 points ahead of her closest competitor, but she knew that precision shooting could humble even the most confident marksman with a single moment of lost concentration. She loaded her rifle and settled into position for what she hoped would be another strong string. Her first shot hit the 10 ring, just missing the X by a hair. Still an excellent shot, but not quite the perfection she had been achieving. Her second shot found the X ring again, restoring her confidence. The third hit the 10 ring, and the fourth struck the X dead center. Sarah was maintaining her exceptional performance despite the increasing pressure of leading a state qualifying competition. Jake's shooting position erupted in frustration after his fifth shot of the string. His bullet had missed the target entirely, striking the frame around the scoring area. Such a complete miss in competition shooting was both embarrassing and devastating to his chances of advancement. "Damn it," Jake muttered loudly enough for nearby competitors to hear. His anger was affecting his shooting technique, causing him to rush his shots and abandon the careful fundamentals that competitive precision shooting required. Marcus was also struggling, though his problems were less dramatic than Jake's complete miss. His shots were consistently hitting the outer rings of the target, scores that would be acceptable for recreational shooting, but were far below championship standards. Sarah completed the fourth string with a score of 99, bringing her total to 397 out of 400 possible points. She had missed a perfect score by only 3 points through 4 strings, a performance that was drawing attention from competitors and observers throughout the range. "Outstanding shooting," commented the range safety officer as he verified Sarah's target. "I've been running these competitions for 15 years, and I've rarely seen that level of consistency from a high school shooter." Amy Chun was holding steady in second place with a total score of 387, still competitive but 10 points behind Sarah's pace. Her shooting was excellent by any standard, but Sarah's rebuilt rifle seemed to be performing at a supernatural level. During the final break, before the last string of 10 shots, Sarah noticed a small crowd of spectators gathering behind the firing line. Word was spreading about her exceptional performance after the morning's equipment sabotage, and people were curious to see if she could maintain her incredible accuracy through the final shots. Coach Williams pulled her aside for a private moment. "Sarah, you're sitting on a score that could win some adult competitions, not just high school qualifiers. But remember, the last string is always the hardest mentally. The pressure is different when you know everyone is watching." "I understand, Coach," Sarah replied. "But honestly, after rebuilding my rifle in 30 minutes this morning, 10 more shots feel easy." Jake approached during the break, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Nice shooting, Martinez," he said, though his tone suggested the words tasted bitter. "Lucky your rifle came back together so well." "Luck had nothing to do with it," Sarah responded calmly. "My grandfather taught me to understand every part of my equipment. When someone tried to sabotage me, I just used his training to fix the problem." Marcus joined the conversation, equally frustrated with his poor performance. "Must be nice to have everything go your way when it counts." Amy Chun overheard the exchange and stepped closer. "Are you guys seriously complaining about Sarah's shooting? She rebuilt her entire rifle this morning and still outshot everyone on the range. That's skill, not luck." Sarah appreciated Amy's support, but she was more focused on maintaining her mental state for the final string. She had learned from her grandfather that competitive shooting was as much mental as physical, and allowing herself to be drawn into negative conversations could destroy her focus. The range officer called for the final string to begin. Sarah had the opportunity to post a score that would not only qualify her for state championships, but establish her as one of the top high school shooters in the region. Everything she had worked for over the past 3 years came down to the next 10 shots. She loaded her rifle and took her position for the final time. The rebuilt scope was still holding perfect zero. The hastily adjusted trigger was breaking consistently, and every component was functioning exactly as her grandfather had taught her to expect from a properly maintained firearm. Sarah's first shot of the final string struck the X-ring with the same authority she had shown throughout the competition. The bullet hole appeared exactly where her sight picture had indicated, confirming that her rebuilt rifle was still performing flawlessly under pressure. The crowd behind the firing line had grown larger, and Sarah could feel the weight of their attention. But instead of creating pressure, their presence reminded her of all the hours she had spent with her grandfather, learning not just to shoot accurately, but to perform with confidence when others were watching. Her second shot hit the X-ring again, followed by the third and fourth. Sarah was shooting another perfect string, something that would cement her reputation as an exceptional marksman and prove definitively that the morning sabotage had only made her stronger. //.